right. Can we start the meeting with you guys introducing yourself to our members here?
Professor Clark, do you want to go?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. I am Professor Clark. I am co-op faculty specifically for computer science students. I specifically work with last names A through K. However, Professor Romer and myself work very collaboratively. Before this role, I was at UC in a program manager role, working with engineering and STEM students. And in January, I transitioned into this faculty co-op advisor role.
And my name is Gwen Romer. I am brand new to this role. I started about a month ago, and I came from Lindner College of Business, where I was working in the International Programs Office, and excited to be working now with co-op students, computer science specifically. And my range of the alphabet is L through Z. So happy to be with you tonight.
All right, thanks a lot. I'll be going over some slides to introduce ACM to. Welcome to our third general body meeting of the semester. If our member here could fill out the attendance at acmuc.org/c. The recording slide and other resources will be available post-meeting at the archive link. A bit of introduction. ACM at UC is the student chapter of the Association of Computing Machinery. Yeah, just forgot to share my screen. Yep. We are the computer science and programming community at UC for students with a common interest in computer technology and software, and we welcome any majors. Our mission is to encourage professionalism among tech enthusiasts in a collaborative fashion by facilitating learning beyond the scope of classroom to develop innovative and inclusive ideas. And we do this through a variety of ways. The most prominent way is probably events like guest speaker, expert panel at our general body meetings. We also host hackathons, specifically the Revolution UC and the International College Programming Contest. We also have social event and review session. The membership requirement is attending 2 meetings, and remember to check in, that's it. It's not necessary for any member to pay for ACM national fee. And the code of conduct, ACM UC is dedicated to a harassment-free experience for everyone. Our anti-harassment policy can be found on our webpage, and we also follow the UC code of conduct, including any non-discrimination clause. A bit of advertisement. Revolution UC is our UC student hackathon happening in spring 2023. A hackathon is a 24-hour of fun coding, learning together with your friends, and get some free swag, connect with sponsor. Right now, we're recruiting organizers for logistics, marketing, web team, and marketing team. So if any of you guys want to be organizer, please come talk to me after the meetings. So the ICPC is the regional meeting of programming competition to prove your algorithmic prowess. Registration info is to be announced at this moment. To connect with us is the best way is through Discord. You guys already probably know we have a lot of channels like general, homework, hangout, random. A new channel has just been opened as it was previously meetup, but we change it to opportunity to post job opportunity or conference opportunity for you guys to know and take the opportunity to join. Code of conduct applies. Other resources, join our campus link to be into our email list to receive our newest notification. And with that, we're going to the first part of today's of tonight's the career and interview tips from our co-op advisor. Professor Gwen, if you could share your screen to pull up the slide, it would be great. Or you want? Yeah. Would you want to pull up the slide, or I can pull up?
I can pull it up. It's fine. Let me just get it real quick.
Yes.
Okay, can you see?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, well, again, it's great to be with you all. This is I feel like a very busy time of year for our office as we are back on campus, excited to be back to normal, and you know, getting students in the spring co-op search. And so today we were asked to kind of just go through some tips and things that might be helpful to you all as you either go through the co-op search, or if you're ending your co-ops and the job search and things like that. So we have some slides going over resume tips, some search tools, networking, interviewing, and then allowing some time for questions at the end. Professor Clark, if you want to jump in at any point, just go right ahead.
Okay. I was going to just piggyback. It absolutely is a critical point in the student life cycle, student schedule. 'Tis the season for jobs with the career fair and so forth. So lots of good things happening.
Yes, definitely. Hopefully some of you were able to make it to the career fair. How many people are there about? Just because we cannot see, are there, is there a group there tonight?
Actually, there's not a lot of people as we expected. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 7 people here. Yeah.
Just curious, because we can't see the room, the whole room.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So, all right. So, I think I can speak for both Professor Clark and I when I say we have been reviewing a lot of resumes these days. And so we've just put some tips up here for your resumes. I'm sure some of you have most of you have some type of working resume at this point. But we would certainly suggest reviewing those, and I will say I'm happy to review anybody's resumes at any point in your career here at UC in preparation for co-op or outside of that. If you get some new experience and you're updating your resume and want another look at it, certainly you could email that to us at any time. In fact, then when you're ready for co-op, it makes our jobs a little bit easier. So just real things that I've noticed. This is my first time, like I said, going through this, but the details of your resume matter. Your spacing matters. Make sure everything is lined up on the left and on the right. Change up your verbs, your power verbs. I will say I've Googled a lot of job descriptions, for things that students have done, and in assistance to think of, hey, this is actually something that you've done on this job. Did you do this? So that's a really good tip to figure out how to describe what you did, is to look up the job itself, what they're asking for in an applicant. Really
Can I
important.
jump in on that one?
Yeah, please.
So that's a good point Professor Romer brings up. One of the things that you'll want to do to really take your resume from good to great is really understanding how to, and it almost becomes mathematical or an equation of sorts where you're using that action verb And then on your bullet points that are describing that position, you really want to make a shift that goes from what you did to how well you did it as much as possible. So showcasing achievements, and if you have the ability to quantify what you did in some way to really give scope and context, that really helps refine that. So I always tell my students, if you can showcase how much, how long, how often you did something, or the size of the team, or the number of projects that you were working on, those go a long way in those in helping with that description plus impact of what you bring to the table.
Yes, that is perfect. Wasn't really going in any order here, but anything else you want to mention, Professor Clark, about resumes that you've noticed?
Yes. So in reviewing seeking students and then my students in PD 1011, these are really targeted points that Professor Romer has here. Another one that some students will overlook the impact on is ensuring that when you all, so we think of you all as emerging student professionals, meaning that that's your lead identity working with a employer partner of ours. They know that you're a student, that you're training, and that you have aspirations to move into this discipline. And because of that, we want to encourage you all to make sure that you lead with your education on your resume. And with that, make sure that that's your formal training that you're engaging in. So feel free to list like your primary coursework. And that doesn't mean that you're going to list every single thing in their curriculum, but you are going to list, or should think about, the targeted classes that you're taking and be able to have a talking point about one of those classes and what that meant to you or what you learned. Because that helps just show depth. It helps them understand your perspective on, you know, that you're a student, but you are also keenly aware that you are going to be engaging in work integrated learning. And that's what you're looking forward to, is marrying that theory and that application together. I have to toggle between mic and muting because, yes, a lot going on over here.
All right, so I guess we'll save questions until the end unless anyone has a question. What do you want to do, Bob?
You have a question, but I can wait until then.
Yeah.
So you were just saying about putting your education first. But for new grads, would you want to have education first though, or would you want to switch that up and calls first?
Can you hear the question?
I did not catch the whole question. I'm sorry.
So the question was, oops. The question was for new grad, do you want to put the education section first, or do you want to put it somewhere else in your resume for new grad?
So that is still a large part of your primary identity, but it's going to be followed up very quickly with the skills that obviously you've acquired along the way, and then that professional experience or project-based learning. So it's still going to have a lot of that same type of formatting. Where it gets a little bit different is when you transition to like a mid-career professional and your education is less timely with the cumulative experiences that you've had doing industry-related work for a number of years. Then that's where you're leading more with, I'm a seasoned professional with this type of background. Oh yeah, and then I have this formal training that I did 15 years ago or 12 years ago or so forth. Great question.
Yep, good.
Okay, we will keep going. Oops, wrong direction I'm going. Okay, Just some resources here about your external searches, your external job searches. Most of you might already be familiar with PAL, which is the co-op's office. It's kind of our integrated system that we use for just co-op related postings. But there are a lot of tools that you can use outside of PAL and that we encourage you to use outside of PAL. And in fact, for our current spring students searching for co-ops, we have some directed goals for the external search as you're going through that process looking for a co-op. So Handshake is a great resource. It's kind of something that is available to a lot of universities around the country. You can use a lot of different filters on actually Handshake and Career Shift as well. For example, if you are an international student, you can search under Handshake for companies who sponsor, not necessarily sponsor, but will accept CPT and OPT students, which is great. And then, of course, there's a couple others listed here, and we have Professor Clark and I use an external tracking sheet to kind of keep track of what you're applying to. You should always save that job description because once you apply, it might disappear. And if you're asked for an interview later, you might want to refresh and say, oh yes, now I recall what that was. So keep those job descriptions within that external tracker as well. And then certainly create automatic notifications. If something comes up within your search term, that you'll be notified and you can apply right away. Professor Clark, what would you like to add?
I think you hit everything on the head. The only other layer I would just add on to is the value of that external tracker sheet and helping you run an organized search. Looking for a position is a full-time effort in itself. And so you really want to create disciplines that help you help yourself in a way, where you have regular rhythms, where you're going to sit down for an hour every day and you've got a goal of complete one application or two applications a day, or look on to PAL at new opportunities or any of the other external searches, or outreaching. The other thing I would put on here, and I don't know if maybe it's on a future slide, with the external search, I think it's just as much about activities or actions as it is about strategy. And so I would encourage folks to also consider the value of seeking informational interviews, just to give you more insight into potential opportunities and outreaching and seeing if you can talk to someone in the HR office about a posted position that you're interested in, if there's more information that you can uncover that's not listed on the job description. Those can be really helpful ways of kind of having a warm transition into an application experience.
We have a question from the audience.
So is it better to apply to a job with something like Indeed or Glassdoor or LinkedIn, or like directly through the company's website, or does it matter?
The question was, is it better to apply through job search site like Monster, Indeed, LinkedIn, or is it better to go directly to the company's job portal and find the link and apply there? So does it really matter?
I don't know, Professor Clark. My opinion would be that it wouldn't really matter, but what's your opinion?
And many times those professional search engines will route you directly to the actual organization site. So when in doubt, I tend to focus directly with the organizational site, knowing that even if you did the third-party site, you're likely going to get rerouted anyway. Good question.
that answer your question? Yep. Thank you.
Hey, was anyone able to attend the career fair today?
We got 3.
3? That's good. So day 2 is still tomorrow, which is great. So hopefully, you know, maybe some of you are going back or going tomorrow for the first time because you couldn't go today. Just a few tips with the career fair. Certainly having a plan ahead of time is a great idea. You can see all of the companies that are attending the career fairs on Handshake, which is where you will register for the career fair as well. But you can see all the companies. You can maybe highlight the ones that you're really interested in working for, and certainly maybe have a top 10 list of companies that you really do want to visit while you're at the fair. You would want to have some sort of Padfolio with you where you can take notes. You will have your resume in there. And maybe some notes that you've jotted down about the company or a question or something that you want to remind yourself to ask when you're visiting that booth. And then I would say, you know, maybe visiting those top 10, but also there's going to be some that maybe don't have any students standing in front of those, and certainly maybe, you know, adding a couple extra if you have time. But allowing yourself plenty of time to, you know, it's a very busy event. So I would say you might be standing in some lines, waiting to talk to individuals. So plan to go when you have plenty of time to visit groups that you're interested in. Professor Clark, hop in there and add some things.
Yeah, yes. You need a strategy, and I will just share a very honest strategy that I have used, and I actually told my 10, 11 class this earlier today. Have a strategy, but be human with yourself and understand that you likely will be nervous at the beginning, and even if you've got a well-defined elevator pitch and you have your talking points, you might not be as fluid or as smooth as you want to be the first time out the gate, even with practice. So what I typically would do at a career fair to help myself, so I like to think of myself as an extroverted introvert. And so I would go to a fair and do a lap to do some recon and see where everything is, feel the energy of the room. And then I would go to a couple of companies that I felt like I could warm up with before I went to my highest value target companies where I knew that I wanted to make the best possible impression of myself. So it's just a way of giving yourself some grace to warm up so that when it's really time to showcase and to be your fullest, most present, vibrant, charming self, you've got all your best mojo working to speak with a company and articulate your values. So it's a way of helping you manage yourself and not shrink in a big room, but to rise to the moment and maximize and compete to the best of your ability.
Great. Any questions or?
Yeah, no question at the moment.
Okay. Professor Clark, you want to give us your best networking tips?
Yeah. Funny story. I'm married to my wife. That's a funny statement. But when I met my wife originally, we were networking. I was networking. I didn't know she was in an industry that I was looking to break into, and we connected organically. And it just happened to be that we decided to build a life together. But I share that story to say that you really should to take the take the edge off of the thought, especially if you're introverted and you're like, networking is awkward or clumsy and it's I don't like small talk and things like that. Really think of networking as just having a curious mind, and really think of it as just organically connecting with someone for potential mutual interest. And in that way, I really encourage students to think about each other as peers and networking with each other. I really encourage you to think about your pre-existing network going into a search opportunity, because the best opportunities can come from working with people that know you and know your quality and will vouch for you. It's a cliche, but it is very true. More times than not, you will land a gig because of who knows you or who you know versus having the best application for a position. And so if you truly think about your encounters, your professors, your advisors, your peers, people you work in part-time jobs with, students that you're in organizations with, your mentors, all these people, and have positive interactions with them, you're going to have an organic network that helps you when you share with them what your goals are and your ambitions, and hopefully you build some synergy where they can help you. Achieve what you're trying to do, and be transparent with it. Put it on LinkedIn. Let your network know this is what I'm trying to accomplish. You'd be surprised at how many people like cheering and seeing someone else win. And if they can be a part of that by helping be a connector for you, that can give people an altruistic feeling, which is good. It's a reward in itself. I know I didn't use any of the slides there.
No,
Those
that's
are some
great.
of mine.
That's perfect, because they can read the slides, so it's okay. Any questions about networking?
We have one question.
How do you start that conversation with somebody that you don't know at all?
The question is, how do you start a conversation with someone you probably don't know at all?
I think it depends on the context, like where you're, connecting with some. If it's in a career fair type of environment, you can be witty and funny with it, or just, be matter of fact and just introduce yourself with the elevator pitch. Tell someone who you are. Give them a little context. You're a third-year computer science student, and that you're looking to have the best possible experience you can at a career fair, and your goals for that are to maybe land an interview on Friday, right? You have no idea who you could be talking to, an advisor, a decision maker, a student who knows about an opportunity, an advisor that knows about an opportunity. So I just always kind of look at it as just kind of having a curious mind, and maybe even asking a question to follow up once you state your perspective, asking that person, how's the fair going for them? How are they finding their experience?
Yeah, and I was just going to add to that, because I know Professor Clark and I are on the same page with this. Is that kind of what he was just saying? The read the room mentality of you might walk up to some tables at a career fair where they just want you to go ahead and start with that elevator pitch, and you might go to another one where they're way more casual and, hey, how you doing today? And you're starting a conversation that way. I think you kind of have to just read that, the context clues a little bit there.
We have another question.
What about somebody maybe that, like, outside of a career fair, like on LinkedIn, or like if you just meet them out in the real world?
Yeah, the question is how to also connect with people who you maybe find on LinkedIn, or you just meet them in the real world, maybe in a meetings like this. So how should we connect with them?
It's still, you can still use that same elevator pitch, explaining who you are, right, and your perspective on things, being genuinely interested in them, And that's a good way of just building relationships in general, is having a genuine interest in what someone else is doing. And if you use some of those basic, or I don't want to say it that way, if you use some of those foundational relational skills with people, that helps to breed additional conversation. You know, I tend to build connections with people by asking questions. And part of that is because I learn more by listening and less by talking. And so oftentimes if you inquire about someone else's situation, sometimes that gives you inserts to say, well, you know what, that's curious. You know, I just had an experience like that, or that's really, that surprises me. And then you can have conversation built around an organic topic or conversation. I almost approach it as a less is more. So I do less talking and more listening almost in most, other than when I have to teach in front of people. So being a good listener, in other words, is a good way of building rapport and connection with someone to have more meaningful conversation.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to hop in and say something. My parents used to say, like, we network for some kind of benefit later down the road, but I realized that when you're actually in the actual conversation, your the first thing you want to think is not like how to extract value, how to extract jobs from this person. It's just to genuinely having a conversation that you guys can agree on some interest and expand the conversation out there to build relationship. They might or might not be able to help, but the important thing is having a fun conversation. I think that really fit with the spirit of what you say about using the foundation or relationship skills.
That's a great point. And Val, let me just circle one more thing on that. The same way you are potentially, or we might potentially be planting a seed with someone else, they might be planting a seed with us. So you have to remember you're bringing something to the table too. So you could be helping someone else, and there's a mutual benefit as well. So it's just good people relational skills. It really is.
And the people at career fairs, you know, when you're going up, introducing yourself, having a conversation, they're thinking, hey, you know, would I like to meet this person on the elevator at, you know, lunchtime and have a conversation with that person? So a lot of that networking piece is, as everyone is saying, that relationship building skills. And, you know, could I see myself working with this individual, or is this individual going to be responsive and very coachable in this position? So, yeah. These are just a few things to, you know, co-op wise. A lot of our students are still getting co-ops even after the semester starts, so never despair. You know, it can happen later, although I will say Professor Clark and I are very front loading our students search for spring early this fall. So we're doing all we can to keep everybody on track and have those co-ops. But it does require a lot of work, as Professor Clark has said, and you know, you're applying to several jobs in order to get an interview or you know, a callback. So just keep that in mind. It might seem all for nothing, but you're doing a lot of work towards that goal of getting a co-op. Anything you want to add, Professor Clark?
Yeah, I was just gonna, friends, I'm gonna be honest with you. I call it real rap. Expect rejection. That's a part of progress, though. So you're not gonna bat 1,000 every time you complete an application. Someone's gonna want you. That's just not the way it works. So just understand and have that perspective that even your best interviews, sometimes someone beats you out for the opportunity. But that doesn't mean, don't internalize that. Don't make that a measure of who you are. It just that opportunity didn't materialize, and continue to keep a diverse approach towards finding that next opportunity.
Professor Clark, do you want to talk about this, or you want me to?
If you want to take it,
Okay.
I mean, I'll definitely jump in at any point.
Yeah, just jump in. Interview, when you get to that point, you've applied and you've gotten an interview. Again, a lot of work should go into researching that company. Maybe asking your co-op advisors if they know about that company, or your faculty members, fellow students that might have done a co-op at that company, to see if you can get some insight and research before your interview. You'll obviously want to have some copies of your resume, practice interview questions. You can generally go online and find some typical interview questions, but think through those answers. Maybe have something formulated ahead of time so that you don't get nervous when you're actually in the interview itself. And also, if you do know other students that have done co-ops there and or interviews, maybe you can, as part of your research, ask, hey, what did they ask you when you were interviewing? What should I be prepared for? So, you know, I feel like interviews are sometimes on Zoom, sometimes in person. So you have both of those situations. If it's in person, certainly remember the name of the person that you talk to, jot that down, have your notes, arrive early. Maybe if it's someplace you've never been before, drive that route before the interview so you're familiar and you know how to get there. If it's on Zoom, of course, making sure all of those pieces of technology work ahead of time, quiet spot, take notes while you're talking about names, especially because that's going to be key for your follow-up emails afterwards. What else would you like to add?
No, I agree with everything. Being strategic about taking those notes so you can have a legitimate, good follow-up with someone and point out something that you had that was a specific interaction with them is amazing. Understand and know the type of interview you're going to have. Dry run it as much as possible down to the, like you said, running the route to see what the commute's going to be like to keep yourself from any kind of hiccups, but build as much insulation as possible. The only other thing I would add, and I talked about this with my students this afternoon, understand that depending on the nature of the organization that you're going into, you want to be as cognizant as possible of what you project as soon as you get onto their property. So remember how you drive up, monitor your music, monitor when you get out of the car, are you stage ready? When you walk in and you meet someone at the front desk, treat that person with the dignity and respect that they deserve as a professional. I actually used to work at a company that would ask the front desk staff after we had candidates come in to interview, how did that person approach the front desk? Were they smiling? Were they disheveled? Were they confident? Were they on time? Right, and they would use those little cues to measure, I guess, how someone responds when they know when they don't think they're being watched. So just keep in mind all those things when you're ready to interview. You want to be as stage ready as possible.
And some of this probably goes along with what we were just talking about, trying to give those complete answers. Again, I would highly recommend practicing interview questions, even if it's with a friend or by yourself, or you know, you certainly don't want to give your yes and no responses. Have something that you can add, because you are certainly trying to let them know what you can offer that company. Certainly if I were if I were interviewing someone and they came in and started complaining about previous roles, it might be a turnoff to me. So just be aware of that. Like, oh, I was at this co-op and it really was terrible because all I did was sit at my desk and do such and such task. So just keep that in mind. You don't want to go in and kind of any sort of bad mouthing of previous roles. Good eye contact, certainly looking around the room. And then certainly expressing gratitude for the opportunity that you have to even be there at the interview. Dewey, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, just really quickly, I know cognizant of time here. For those that have never studied the STAR method as an approach to answering or responding to interview questions, that can be very helpful. It's an acronym that creates a formulaic approach to responding every time you get a question. So the S, if you're unfamiliar, stands for situation. The T stands for the task involved with your response that you're going to explain. The A stands for action, or what were your action steps? And then the R is for what were the results of the scenario. And so if you are providing full, complete answers to questions, you should be able to identify those elements as a part of your response to help a decision maker really understand your value and that you understood the question and could then execute effectively.
I think we are running low on time here. Just a quick slide of things that, you know, you certainly want to keep in mind. You're dressing appropriately. Make sure your cell phone is turned to silent mode.
Yes.
Right, silent mode for the phone. There are certainly times when I have been in interviews and the interviewee just won't stop talking. That is not ideal. Maybe that person gets just caught on one question the whole time, and then you're thinking, oh my gosh, I can only ask one other question because we won't have enough time. So be cognizant of how much you're talking. Certainly you want to relay the information that they're asking you for, but maybe just be aware, self-aware. And then again, I mentioned that talking poorly about previous things and then forgetting to follow up. I read something, Dewey, you can tell me if this is what you've also heard, but that maybe like between 10 and 20% of people follow up on after interviews. It's not very high.
Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah.
It's really important to do, to say thank you for your time and that you're interested and you enjoyed talking about such and such. And so
that's a really great point. And this might sound counterintuitive, team, but you follow up even if you don't get the gig. And again, express gratitude. And here's why. When you all are in the co-op search game, call it that for color, sometimes things happen with students where they had originally committed to a co-op and then it falls out, and you never know, even if they didn't hire you the first time, if you express a back end, hey, thank you for the opportunity. If anything changes, I'd love to be at the top of your list. Sometimes that gig may come back around unexpectedly. You just never know.
Very good point. All right. I think that was the end of our slides. Staying positive is key. Are there any other questions?
It seems like no at the moment. Thanks a lot, Professor Roman and Professor Dewey, for your slides. I really like the colorful way you make the slides look very attractive.
Good. We're glad we could be here virtually. Sorry we were not in person. Just a lot of meetings and things today, but it was at least good to be with you all tonight.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well done, Val. Thank you for having us, and good luck, everybody.
Yes.
For the time we have left, we have collected some questions from the members beforehand. If you still have some time,
okay.
I would love to go over it. All right.
You want me to stop sharing? I can stop sharing.
Yeah, I can start sharing now. All right. The first question is on by Daniel. What should the mix of hard and soft skill look like in a technical resume, especially for engineering student?
So I'm a believer. I'm sorry, Professor Romer. I'll just jump in real quick on that one. I'm a believer that your technical skills can be bulleted out, but you need to be very cautious about the technical skills for which you tout, and ensure that if you are asked about them or challenged on them, that you can speak to them with the level of mastery that you are purporting that you have. Because you never know, you might run into a content expert on something and they really want to get in the weeds with you on something. So you want to be cautious of that. As it relates to your cross-cutting skills and your tech or your soft skills, I believe that information really materializes as you express your workplace achievement bullet points. I think it comes through there rather than bullet pointing out soft skills or cross-cutting skills. I think you should be able to articulate that through your actions, and then ultimately you're able to articulate that on the interview side. That's kind of the way I coach students to think of it.
All right. Yes. Thanks for the answer. Next question is about networking. This one's from me. I think you already say a lot about networking. Just a general overview. I want to ask about what's the goals of networking, what's the metric of a successful network, or how students know that they are networking correctly, on the right path. Is that actually a things like that? Yeah, and how can students network more while going to classes or going on co-op?
My opinion is networking is really relationship building. And so you kind of need to think of it as such. It is making connections with people as you go through your university experience. So again, your professors, the students, your co-op advisors, your academic advisors, really making those connections while you're on co-op, certainly trying to make connections with your colleagues. I know a lot of times if you're hybrid or remote, that's difficult, but if there are opportunities to, a group is going out to dinner or something, I mean, take all those opportunities that you can, get involved with different groups. Obviously, you're involved with this group, and what other groups on campus that would be building relationships with people and or advisors. What do you think, Dewey?
I agree. It's at the core of it. At the core of it, it's about making authentic contact with people and nurturing those relationships, because you can help someone else the same way they can help you. So I think that's really good. Speaking of which, Val, who's the faculty advisor for ACM?
Yeah, I think it's Dr. John Franco. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Next question is about LinkedIn. It's a question about this co-messaging the recruiter on LinkedIn, or just the strategy of co-messaging in general. Does it actually help instead of applying directly? And if so, how do we actually do the email co-messaging strategy, and what should we write?
I would say yes. I mean, recruiters are on LinkedIn to get work to help people, so that's their gig. So you definitely want to outreach them. And the worst that they can tell you is that they don't have any information to help you. I mean, that's it. And at least now you have some closure on that opportunity. And simply put, you outreach someone with dignity and respect, let them know who you are and that you noticed an opportunity. you had some questions that you were hoping you could maybe ask about as it relates to the opportunity, and you wanted to know if they would be able to, you'd be able to connect with them to talk more directly about it. And with anything, that's going to be the same way you apply for jobs and expect rejection. Sometimes you'll have follow-up from that individual, and sometimes they will say, I'm not the person to connect with, or I don't have anything to share with you. It's going to be a mixed bag. There's not one way to do it, in other words.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And something else to think about is a lot of times when I'm sending emails, I will say, if there's someone else I should contact or talk to, let me know. So if it's not them and they just say no, they've answered your question. But if it is someone else and you've asked, is there someone else I could talk to? Or if you're not the person that is in charge of this, could you direct me to that person? Then they have something else, some other piece of information potentially to give you.
All right, thank you. Do you have any tips on how to leverage LinkedIn and generally how to leverage your network for more successful job searching season? Like, I've seen people post
Yes.
on LinkedIn. Yeah.
So just a couple of things on that. So if you're seeking opportunities, make sure you have the open to work file around your image. Yes, share interesting things you're reading, articles, your work projects that you're doing on campus, interesting events that you're going to on campus. If you're engaged in a student organization or a professional development organization, as you all are, obviously you can share information that you're getting from the org as well. But so there's a lot of ways you can position yourself as a new voice or a fresh voice in the space, and showcase your enthusiasm that can potentially create followership via social media. But you, whatever you put out there, obviously you want to make sure that it's authentic to who you are, and that you're interested in it, and that you have some ability to kind of talk about it in a way in case someone wants to engage you in that. You don't want to put yourself out there for being a content expert for which you are not.
Right, thank you. Next question is about co-ops. What do you think most students don't realize before their first co-op, but probably really should know? And what's the best practice for leveraging a co-op into a full-time position?
I will say I'm new to this gig, but the thing that I'm hearing over and over from students before their first co-op is that they're so worried they need to know everything. And that is actually not the case. All of these co-op, these positions, these companies, they are ready and happy to be training you all. So it is not a situation where you need to go in and feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to know what to do, I shouldn't be here. That's what these positions are for. They are training, and it's such an awesome opportunity. So I would say, don't be nervous about that piece. You want to talk about the leveraging co-op? Do we?
Yeah, I agree with everything Professor Romer said as it relates to leveraging your cooperative education experiences. The biggest thing is do good work. And I know that sounds like an obvious thing, but when you are working and you are doing well and performing well, that's a great audition for a decision maker there to either potentially think about bringing you back as a full-time employee, or in some cases, if they don't have an opportunity, potentially they know of an opportunity, again, networking, or at the minimum, if they don't know about an opportunity, they are willing to write you a recommendation or an endorsement to say, that you are a quality professional and that you brought value to their organization. So it comes down to, again, back to that building relationships and doing good work. And those two things are really good pillars for moving forward in co-op and as an emerging professional.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, thanks for the question. I think we have some last question. What kind of attributes or attitude get students through the first round of interviews, and what can students do like on school and after school to better the chance of getting interviews and potentially positions? Oops. Someone dropped.
I think that just goes back to Professor Romer said earlier, being involved in co-curricular activities like this. Full transparency, the work that I do now as a professional is more aligned with the co-curricular things I did as an undergrad versus the actual content that I studied. This is where you really get a chance to execute those cross-cutting skills around practical application of competencies, communication, all those which are underpinnings to almost every career. So I'm a big proponent of being a student or being having student activism as part of your experience as well. And if you don't have that, having something that external to your university experience, but still allows you to practice relevant skills and competencies. That's going to be critical in helping give you talking points in an interview.
All right, get out of the way. What's your favorite part about your job, and what's the best piece of advice you give but students never follow? Yeah. The final question for today.
I think the information that's a good one. Professor Romer kind of talked about it, but you don't have to know everything. Employers know that you don't know everything. Otherwise, you'd already be employed by them in a full-time role. So I would just try to encourage students to give themselves grace and understanding that it is a process of knowledge and skill acquisition. And sometimes, I told my students this earlier today, I probably learn more when I mess up than when I actually get things right. And so allow yourself to have those opportunities to grow because that really can be beneficial in you rounding out holistically, not just from a technical acquisition perspective, skill acquisition, but just a growth mindset and competencies to be just a fully functioning adult.
Favorite part about your job?
Students and relationships.
Same, helping students become functional employees in the workforce. You know, being successful. It's great.
And learning. I put that on there too. And learning. Yes.
Right. Thank you to Professor Clark and Professor Romer. I think that's the last of the questions today. And with that, we are ending our meeting too. It's the final word. Remember to join our sibling organization at IEEE, ACM Women, UC Women in Tech, and ITSA. Thanks you guys for coming. Thanks the professor for joining with us today. Yes, thank you so much for attending. Hope you all have a great night. And
thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Talk to you all later.
Bye.
Bye.